Inkscape and Affinity are graphic design programs that sewists can use to make digital sewing pattern alterations. These programs both pair beautifully with Projector sewing. However, if you're new to these programs, they definitely have a learning curve. So in this video, I'm going to explore some of the key differences when using it for sewing, so you can choose the one that is right for you to start learning. I previously did a video on Inkscape versus Affinity Designer, but since then, Affinity has released a new version after the company was acquired by Canva in 2005. Affinity used to have 3 separate applications. It was Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, and Affinity Publisher. However, they are now all combined into one application, and it's just called Affinity. At the making of this video, it is available on Mac and Windows computers, and the iPad version will come out at a later date, but you can still download Affinity Designer for the iPad for free right now. Inkscape is an open source and community-driven program. Many users have created great extensions and plugins, and it has had some great back-end updates as well. Inkscape is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux computers. It's not available for iPad. Now, I have been working for years in both of these programs, making sewing pattern alterations, and I have even created 2 courses for making sewing pattern alterations using Inkscape and Affinity. Along the way, I've noticed a few things that I like better in each program over the other. Now, if you would like to learn how to make digital sewing pattern alterations using Inkscape or Affinity, then check out my courses. They walk you through the basics of each program. Then they dive into using them for sewing. So it's geared towards sewing and not towards graphic design like lots of other tutorials you might find. You'll find a link to the courses in the description below. But let's go ahead and dive into some of the most prominent differences between Inkscape and Affinity when it comes to working with sewing patterns. First, let's go over some of Inkscape's strengths. Number 1, the guidelines. Inkscape has a better guideline menu. Guidelines in Affinity can be added by dragging from the rulers. In Affinity, you can see all the guideline values at once and make grids. You can add guidelines and change their location in the guideline menu. You can make color changes, but they're uniform across all guidelines. In Inkscape, it starts out with the basic functions of guidelines available in Affinity. Then it goes above and beyond in the control of guidelines. You can select one guideline at a time. You can duplicate the lines, rotate the guideline angle from a specific point on the guideline. You can make a relative change and duplicate the line, lock a specific guideline, change individual colors of each guideline, give the guidelines names. The next feature is the Select Same feature. Inkscape just has a better Select Same feature. What can be used for creating layers on non-layered patterns is what I usually use this for. The options for selecting Same in Affinity include Same Fill, Stroke, or Weight. You can also choose the same fill and stroke color, but Inkscape has a lot more combinations for selecting the same fill and stroke, along with other options that typically cover everything you need to select a size stroke on a sewing pattern. Working with non-layered sewing patterns to create layer sizes or isolate a size is just easier done in Inkscape using the Select Same features. Next, Inkscape has this built-in scaling feature, which is called zoom correction factor. Now what this does is it can set a default 100 zoom to scale. This can be used in conjunction with a manual projector calibration, so you can project patterns directly from Inkscape. It's not necessary for making sewing pattern alterations, but it does open up options for projecting and correcting directly from the projection. Next, if a sewing pattern is password protected for editing, Inkscape typically will bypass this and open. Affinity will usually bring up a dialog for these files using a password, and they will be unlocked, and you have to unlock them before you can make the alterations that you need in Affinity. It just creates another step that Inkscape just bypasses. Next, Inkscape's layout can be customized almost any way you can imagine. Also, there are many extensions available that increase the functionality of Inkscape. Now let's jump over to Affinity's strengths. One of their strengths, I think, is measuring curves. Affinity just has a better option for measuring curves. There's a tool directly on the toolbar that can be used to measure line segments and curves. In Inkscape, to measure curves, we use either path effects or an extension. It's possible, but it's just not as quick and convenient as the Affinity tool. But Inkscape does have more options for measuring or preserving the measurement on the file and keeping it and the way you measure it. Next, let's talk about Affinity's intuitive user interface. Many find the user interface and defaults more intuitive. They also love the sleek look of Affinity. Inkscape has many robust options designed for professionals, and it just can get overwhelming to the beginning or sewing user. Next, responsiveness. Affinity is typically faster to respond to large pattern files and less likely to crash. While Inkscape has improved in stability over the years, it has a higher likelihood of crashing than Affinity. Next, layered in exports. Affinity can export layered files, whereas Inkscape will flatten the layers. Meaning, if you want to export a multi-sized pattern, that the size visibility can be toggled on or off in Pattern Projector, you will not be able to do this in Inkscape. For most hobby sewists, this isn't an issue because you only need the size you altered to be visible, but keep in mind that you won't be able to export those multi-sized patterns. Next, multiple document tabs. Affinity can open multiple document tabs at once. Each open file will appear as a tab at the top of the screen. Now, Inkscape can open multiple files at once, but they will open in a new window. Having too many windows open in Inkscape can cause it to crash. Now, while this next thing is not really applicable to sewing, Affinity is more than vectors. It can edit pixels or raster files, but Inkscape is strictly a vector editing program. While this doesn't really affect editing sewing patterns, Affinity does have the ability to edit images and create publishing layouts. Affinity also has an iPad version, whereas Inkscape does not have an iPad version. If you are using an iPad, then you'll need to use Affinity Designer that is available on iPads for free. Affinity version 3 for iPads doesn't have a release date yet at the making of this video, but will also eventually be available for iPad. So again, if you want to use an iPad, Affinity is your best option for editing sewing patterns digitally. I also want to make a little note of some notable updates for Affinity version 3. And this is also not directly related to sewing pattern alterations, but I was very happy to see that Affinity version 3 now has the ability to trace images. Inkscape has had this feature for a while now, And I really only use this feature when I want to make a mock-up using a line drawing of a sewing pattern. I like to use the trace image and then fill it in with the colors or the pattern that I want to use for the material. So in conclusion, both are free to download and use. They each open and export PDF and SVG files that can be opened in our calibration programs. Both programs can be used to grade between sizes, rotate darts, and lengthen or shorten patterns. No matter if you use Affinity or Inkscape, you will be able to completely ditch the paper in favor of digital sewing pattern alterations. Affinity has a few features that are only available to Canva Pro subscribers, but these features are not needed for sewing. Affinity is part of the Canva company, so it has access to the resources and development of the Canva ecosystem. Affinity also has multi-functions including vectors, imaging, and publishing layouts. It is really an all-in-one tool, so it can be used for more than just editing vectors. Inkscape is open source and supported by donations from users. So if you enjoy using it, I highly recommend donating on their homepage. This is how they can continue to make updates to the program. Inkscape truly has a lot of functionality and options, but it can also be very overwhelming to beginners. When you're ready to start learning how to use one of these programs for sewing, then check out my courses in the link below. And if you've used these programs before, both of them, did I miss something that you think I should have included that relates to sewing? Leave me a comment below. Thank you for joining me today, and happy sewing!